Hi loves, happy Tuesday. I hope that you guys are doing well. Today is Tyy Tuesday, and for today's topic, we're going to be diving deep into the fascinating world of words through etymology. So etymology is the study of the origin and evolution of words and how they change over time. So for example, did you know that the word silly originally meant blessed or worthy and is shifted over time to meaning foolish or goofy? Isn't that so interesting? Words hold so much power, so it's so interesting to see the ways in which they've evolved over time and how we use them in today's society now. I have a whole list of other words as well that you're going to be so shocked to know the origin of. So if you're interested, let's dive right into it. Hey loves, welcome back to my channel and welcome if you're new. Thanks for joining me. My name is Tyla and today is going to be such an interesting topic. I have some really interesting words that I want to share with you guys, and I just want to say a shout out to my friend because he put me onto this term because I never knew that there was actually a name for this. But it's something that I always think about when it comes to a lot of the words that we use in our day-to-day, when it comes to slang, when it comes to ebonics, just when it comes to a lot of different words that we use in the English language. English is just so interesting in the way that a lot of the words that we use have so many different meanings to them. So I'm so excited to show you guys this list. So let's not waste any time. Let's get right into it. So I'm going to put all of the details on the screen as well because I took some notes, but some of these words I do not know how to pronounce. So I'm going to put it on the screen so that you guys can see. So when it comes to the word nice, it originally meant ignorant, but it now has a meaning that's similar to being pleasant. This one actually came from a Latin word, which I'll put on the screen because I don't want to butcher it. But that word stems from the meaning ignorant and not knowing. So that one's really interesting to see how we went from being ignorant to being something that's pleasant and where that kind of initiated and how that kind of came to being something that was looked at as more positive. Although I have heard that before, that that term actually meant ignorant and did not have a positive meaning behind it. So, you know, a lot of people say instead of being nice to be kind. So that's something that you can take into consideration as well. But words are super powerful. It's also the intentions that you put behind the words. So the next one that I have that I thought was really interesting was the word girl. So for girl, it was actually used for any gender. It wasn't just specific to female. It was used for male and female, which I thought was super interesting. And how it kind of just transitioned to meaning, you know, a little girl or being more feminine. Girl originally comes from Middle English spelled as G-U-R-L-E or G-I-R-L-E, which referred to a young person of either gender. This was commonly used during the 13th and 14th centuries and didn't specify male or female. Over time, girl began to lean toward referring to females, likely due to social and cultural developments. During the medieval period, society started distinguishing more sharply between the roles and expectations of boys and girls. By the 16th century, girl was commonly used to refer specifically to young females. By then, young males were often called boys. The next word that I also have is awful, which used to mean full of awe. Which when you think about it, that does make sense because, you know, if something is full of awe, it's awful. So I actually like that term. I kind of wish that we would have kept that origin of the word, but, you know, now it has more of a negative connotation and meaning, which means bad. Most of these words were used in a negative meaning and switched to a positive meaning, or it was the opposite. It switched from a very positive meaning to something that was very negative and derogatory. This next word is hussy, which used to mean housewife, but became derogatory as views of women changed, which is super interesting. And that honestly says a lot about society. The fact that it became a derogatory word when it was originally just meant to be housewife. Terrific used to mean terrifying, but now it's something that's seen in a more positive light. People use terrific when something is good, or, you know, just something is positive, it's terrific. Terrific originates from the Latin word terrificus, which means causing terror or frightening. When it entered English in the 17th century, it retained this meaning of something that inspires fear or dread. In the 18th and 19th centuries, the meaning of terrific began to expand. People started using it to describe something intense or awe-inspiring, which could either be positive or negative. For example, a storm might be described as terrific to emphasize its intensity or grandeur. So the next one that I have on my list is naughty, which used to mean poor or nothing. So I guess in a sense, this one kind of always had a more negative meaning behind it. but it wasn't in the sense that it was bad. It was meaning poor or meaning nothing. The word naughty comes from the Old English word not, which means nothing or worthless. In the 14th century, to call someone naughty meant they were poor, destitute, or lacking in material possession. Over time, being naughty began to take on a moral connotation. If someone was poor or had nothing, society often unfairly associated that with a lack of virtue or morality. By the late Mid-Ages, naughty came to describe someone who was wicked or evil, reflecting a broader tendency to equate poverty with moral failing. In the 17th and 18th centuries, naughty began to lose its harsher wicked meaning and took on a lighter tone, especially when describing children. It became a way to describe playful misbehavior or minor disobedience rather than true immorality. For example, a child who stole a cookie might be called naughty. Next, we have clue, which stemmed from a ball of thread to being a hint. This one actually came from Greek mythology as well, so that one's pretty interesting. And I don't know, much about threading and sewing, so if you guys know about that, then let me know. The next one I have is artificial, which used to mean skillful and now means, something that is fake. Originally, artificial meant skillfully made or crafted with art, derived from the Latin word artificialis. Over time, as society began valuing natural things more, especially during the Romantic era, artificial started to imply something man-made and inferior to nature. With mass production and imitations, it eventually took on the meaning of fake or not genuine. Today, we associate it with things that mimic nature but lack authenticity. And then last but not least, I have villain, which used to mean farm worker and now means like a bad guy. The word villain originally comes from the Latin word villanus, meaning farmhand or worker on a villa. In medieval Europe, it referred to a low social status, specifically peasants who worked the land. Over time, villain became associated with negative traits because of class biases. The upper classes often viewed peasants as crude, untrustworthy, or immoral. So as a result, the world began to take on connotations of dishonesty or bad behavior. By the 14th century, villain had fully evolved to mean someone who was wicked or evil, eventually becoming the term we use today for the bad guy in stories. So those are just a couple words, you guys, but literally the other night, I was going through a list of different words and their original meanings. It's so interesting to see where most of these have stemmed from. And if you're interested, I highly recommend to go and look them up, just so that you can get some insight into the words and what they kind of mean, how they started. It's like going into a deeper story behind different words. You learn something completely new about the origin of the word. The interesting thing too about words is that they can either bring us together or separate us. And I feel like this is a really good example of how they can do that, because in certain areas and parts of the world, they are still using the original meaning of a lot of these words. Whereas here in the US, we have a whole nother meaning to these words. Another aspect I was thinking of too when it comes to words and their original meaning and just words in general, how we use them, is that I feel a lot of words have lost their power and just lost their depth behind them. When you think about certain words that we use now, we either overuse certain words or we underuse them. And I feel like that really says a lot about how we've evolved as a society as well, by the way that we use these words and the lack of intention that we put behind certain words. I feel like no matter what way that you use a word, it's always about the intention behind it. So you can be using a word that has a negative meaning, but if you're using it in a positive and intentional way, then it gives new life and new meaning to that word. So for example, with a lot of the words that we use now, how it stemmed from a negative meaning, but we now use it in a positive way. I feel like that kind of changes the energy behind the word when you have that positive intention behind it. Words are so powerful, so it's very important to be intentional with the things that you say and with the things that you speak, because you can either speak life or you can speak death. But all in all, language is so important, because if it wasn't for language, we wouldn't be able to connect the way that we do. We wouldn't be able to share stories. So I'm very grateful for just words in general and the meanings behind them, and to be able to learn more about the origin of certain meanings, because it's so interesting and it teaches you so much about not only the word, but just about life and society as a whole. There's so many other words, guys, that I did not add. So I definitely want you guys to go ahead and look up the etymology behind a lot of these words that you may think of. Any word that comes to mind that you have interest in, go ahead and look it up because you may be surprised on the original meaning of it. So I do hope that you guys enjoyed this video and found use in it. If you know about etymology, definitely comment down below what you feel about it, your beliefs about it. And if you know already certain words and terms and the original meaning behind them, I would love to know about them. If you have any that I did not mention in this video, definitely be sure to comment them below. Give this video a thumbs up, like, comment, share, subscribe, and I will see you guys in my next video. Peace out and much love.